I will leave.
Yeah, sure, Nisha. Thank you very much.
Nisha.
So when we propose vote of thanks, you wouldn't be there. So we'll thank you now itself.
No problem. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think it's time, Sudha.
Yeah.
Sudha, so will you begin?
Okay. Welcome, everyone.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you for taking this time and, to attend this webinar. This webinar is the first of the series of webinars we are planning to hold based on research, right? So the topic is on demystifying research, and the facilitator Suriyaprakash, as all of you know, he is the next incoming president of SAATA.
Yeah.
And just to name a few of his accreditations, he has so many to his list. He's a TSTA in organization and counseling. He's an integrative life coach, facilitator of the Relations Institute of Development, and TSTA in organization and counseling. So what we are looking at on research is based on the field of mental health, how we can use transactional analysis for the purpose of learning and development, the area of communication skills, and generally how a TA can be, and its interventions, its principles and concepts can really be helpful in the field of mental health, learning and development. So because this is only a 1-hour program, I'm going to be very brief. I invite you all to put your questions on chat so that we can explore these questions with Surya in a little towards the end. So Surya, I'm just contracting with you. If you could give us some time towards the end, maybe 5 or 10 minutes, or if we can even extend by another 5 or 10 minutes, please let me know what is okay for you all. Yeah.
Thank you, Sudha. Thank you so much. Thank you, Raghu.
Yeah, maybe with that, on information to all of us. So
we will be
webinar is
recording
being recorded.
Yes, we will be recording this.
It's lovely to be here and doing this first webinar on this series on research for SAATA. And yes, Sudha, I hope to keep my presentation bit shorter so that we'll have more time for questioning and question and answers. But I will also have a couple of reflection points in between so that we'll also have some time for participants to share some of your thoughts on the subject. But definitely we'll have at least about 15 to 20 minutes at the end. Okay. So, okay, lovely. So, welcome all of you. It's a relatively big group for a 1-hour session, so we will not do the traditional circle of introduction and all that. I'm lovely to see so many faces. It will be great if all of you could keep your cameras on, because it's been a long day for me, especially after about 3-4 sessions. It will be nice to see cheerful faces more than the black boxes. But I understand some of you might have constraints in keeping the camera on. It's okay. Lovely to see some familiar faces, and there are many new faces, and it's great to be here. As you know, the topic is demystifying research, which has been a subject of interest for me for a long, long time. And of course, my first introduction to research was when I was doing my PhD long back, which I should admit was not a very pleasant experience. But my extended notion of what research is and how is it relevant for us on a day-to-day basis evolved primarily in my experience with learning and practicing TA over the last 30 years. So let me, before I present what I have to share, what I wish to share with you today, and why I am doing this, I would like to ask you, what comes to your mind the moment you think of research? Just tell me, you can put it in the chat box or you can just unmute and say one word that comes to your mind when you think of research.
Tedious.
Top of your mind. Pardon?
Tedious.
Tedious, okay.
Innovation.
Nishta says lot of work. Innovation, someone, Taisin said innovation. Search and search.
Rigorous.
Okay, rigorous. Okay. Lots of reading, Namrata says. Josephine says strenuous. Or Aishwarya says curiosity. Somebody else said something. I lost your voice. Sorry.
Knowing the unknown.
Knowing the unknown, Kritika says. Okay. Srilata says going deep. Gayatri says depth. Okay. New knowledge. Tedious. Boring, endless. Okay. Lot of work. Right? Lots of reading. Yes. Curiosity, discovery. Any other thoughts? Okay. Exploring. Yes. Yes, definitely. So, as you could see, normally it's not a very pleasant association that goes with the word research. Generally, because when we say research, we only think of journal articles, these voluminous, research theses that people submit, and all this complex language that we hear whenever people present anything to do with research, right? And therefore, I'm just assuming most of us, if not all of us, think this is not my cup of tea. Let researchers do research. I'm not a researcher. Maybe I'm a teacher or I'm a practitioner or whatever. I'm a therapist. Research has nothing to do with me because I can't waste time on research. I have enough already in my plan. What I'm going to do hopefully in the next hour is to debunk all those myths and then inviting you and also possibly inspiring some interest in you towards this whole process of research. Okay. So at any point of time, if you have any question coming up, please note it down for yourself or in the chat box so that I think Sudha would take them up later when I finish my presentation. Or if it is so pressing, you may also want to unmute and ask the question during the flow as well. So let us keep it as open as possible. Okay. So I would present to you for the next maybe about 30 minutes or so, sharing very briefly why I brought in this subject and what I want to say, impress upon all of you. And then I will open it up for questions. Okay, so please stay with me. I'm going to share my screen to make this presentation. As I said, the subject is demystifying research. Even though I'm presenting, please keep your camera still on because I could see some faces, at least, if not all. The idea is to see research as part of everyday practice, especially of transactionals. I'm assuming all of you are directly or indirectly connected with TA, either as a trainee or as a past trainee or as a trainer or as a practitioner or someone who have some form of introduction to TA. And therefore, I'm curtailing this presentation to looking at research from a TA practice point of view. Okay. And why are we having this conversation? As we saw just a while ago, research often feels distant or intimidating. As I said, it's too strenuous, it's a lot of work, it's boring, it's so vexing. Okay. And it is seen as an extra or academic work. It's almost like something other than what I do, or it is more of an academic work. I'm more of a practitioner, I'm a practical person. Why should I get into research? That could be the thought But we often forget that TA was born from careful observation. It may not be research in the traditional sense, but definitely if you read Burns' works, you will find it was born out of careful observation, and we are going to see how, therefore, it is relevant. Research in our TA practice is so relevant for us. Okay. And the common myths about research is, those of you, I saw some of you are in the academics also, some of you is from RBS and so on. We think research means statistics and tools. Unfortunately, that is what our academia has made it as. Immediately to talk of research at any level, as an master's or MPhil or PhD level, immediately talk about, what tools am I going to use? Okay. And we also tend to believe that only academics do research, and also that research starts after practice. I do something and then I research that practice. This is the tendency, normal myths that we carry. When I say myths, basically I'm talking about they're not facts, but we tend to believe it is facts because mostly that is what we are exposed to. Okay. What I'm inviting you from this session is a reframe, to reframe this notion and to understand and look at research as not a product. Research is not the thesis that I'm producing or a journal article that I'm publishing. In fact, research is a way of thinking. In fact, research is the basis for scientific thinking. Okay, and that is why there's so much of importance in research, especially in professional practice, in professional education. Okay, so fundamentally, what is research? If you really look at it in a very basic level, at a very fundamental level, it is systematic curiosity. Not just being curious in a random manner, but systematically I'm curious. Disciplined observation, not just observing, but also disciplined observation, observing with a particular intentional, conscious manner, and reflective meaning making. How I make meaning of phenomenon that I am observing, phenomenon that I am part of. I'll very shortly, I will also explain to you some of these with some examples. Sorry, something shifted. Let me just, are you able, okay, are you able to see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
So I'm coming from the space of what Burns' original spirit was when he developed the whole theory of transaction analysis. Okay, he grounded this whole theory on observation and verification. So those of you who have read his original works would have found, how did he arrive at this notion of the parent ego state or child ego state? He observed his clients, what he called as patients, so closely, and he verified it, of course, with some repeated experiences with several patients. And then he decided, oh, okay, this is what I would call the parent ego state. Because those of you who heard of the story of the Segundo, the client who was a successful lawyer, and then at one of the sessions, he said, I'm only a little boy getting into an 11-year-old experience. So Bourne felt, that man who was almost in his 30s or 40s sounded like and looked like and had the demeanor of an 11-year-old at that moment. That is what he closely observed. And then, of course, he verified, asking them what is going on. And he was talking about his childhood experience. So he grounded that observation, and that theory emerged from that practice. It was not the other way around. He did not conceptualize something and then go on to apply it in his practice with patients. No, he looked at what was happening with his patients. He observed them clearly, verified it repeatedly, and then he conceptualized the theory. And therefore, naming followed noticing. He did not come up with the notion that there is an ego state, there is a parent, there is a child, but he noticed something in the patients and then he named it. Okay. And in a way, that is research. That is the spirit of research. Okay. And therefore, the underlying element that I'm emphasizing here is research is already in your practice. If you're learning something systematically and you're applying it and using it systematically, then research is embedded, it's innate in it. The question is, we are not seeing it. Okay? Because we have this whole hang up about, oh, research means I have to do this, I have to read 101 articles, and I have to draw theory, I have to conduct a survey, I have to apply some analytical tools, and then I have to come up with some path-breaking, groundbreaking, realities. Only that is, and I have to write long thesis in complex language. It has to be published. That is one form of research. Okay, but when we are talking about practice, in professional practice like transaction analysis, we are looking at research which is already part of our practice. For example, when you're contracting and you're forming hypotheses in your own mind in terms of what is probably happening with the client, there is research involved there. There is an element of observation. There is an element of, connecting with theory. There is an element of looking at patterns. Okay. And when you're observing patterns, there is research involved there. How do you observe patterns? Because there is the framework, and here are some facts. I am aligning those facts or verifying those facts, cross-checking those facts with the framework that I have in mind. And therefore, that is also research. Okay. And I review interventions. I make certain interventions and I review saying, oh, has it been effective? If it is not effective, what else can I do? Okay. And of course, I also take my practice for supervision, where I reflect on my practice. I ask myself questions. Okay, what worked in this case? What did not work in this case? Why did this not work in that case, whereas it worked in this case? What are the factors which probably, enabled this to make it work? Or what are the factors probably came in the way? Okay, and interfered in the way, I'm applying it. So you are systematically, consciously reflecting on it in supervision. So all these processes that we do as part of our professional practice are aspects of research. They may not qualify as academic research, but they are elements of aspects of research. I'm basically emphasizing and inviting you to think of how research is already part of our practice. We are not randomly doing things, are we? No, there is a method in the way we apply, the way we work with our clients. And that is also research. For example, when I used to teach research methodology in business school, the first class I start with is, okay, do you all think you are researchers? No. Do you all think you do research? No. Then I ask them, okay, all of you own a cell phone? Yes. How did you buy that cell phone? How did you decide to buy that particular cell phone when there are hundreds of models available all over the world? Then each one of the enthusiasts come and say, how many models did you at least check before buying this? How many people did you even consult before buying this? What are the various factors that you looked into before arriving at this is the best model for me? They have a long list of elements. Only thing is they did not do it on an Excel sheet. But if you really look at it, that is research. You cannot publish it, definitely. But there was research behind the decision to buy a particular cell phone, given there are so many available. But we don't see it that way. Okay, so therefore I would invite us to basically reframe ourselves saying, okay, research is something that I have to do outside of my work, or research is something that I do on my work. No, we are embedding elements of research in our day-to-day practice with our clients. That is the shift I'm inviting you to think of. I know it's a new paradigm, but I think it's the first step towards it. For some example from our practice, as I said, how do you arrive at your initial hypothesis? For example, oh, okay, this must be the contamination with this client. Or how do you arrive at the decision that probably this is a type 2 impasse? Or how do you decide, okay, I think this is the driver that person is coming from, and therefore, or this must be the cross transaction that is happening, Or probably this is the countertransference I got into. How do you arrive at this initial hypothesis as to what is going on or what is probably going on with the client? Or probably he is playing a game. How do you arrive at the initial hypothesis? There is an element of research in your mind. You go through a systematic process. And not only that, you go on an ongoing observation. You continuously observe the client. You make notes, right? As to what you observed, what the client said, that not just what they said, but also the body language, the demeanor, the pauses, the silence moments in the session. You have an ongoing observations and you record them. You note them. Most of the time we do it in our mind. We don't even note it down, on record, on a paper. Okay. And you adjust our intervention, as I said earlier. Okay. Oh, this is not work. I thought this is a stroke economy. Therefore, I did this confrontation, but it did not work. Okay, maybe I should do something else. Or I thought this was the driver, but it looks like that was not the driver. Or maybe I confronted a little too early. That's why the contamination did not work. Decontamination did not happen. So you adjust your interventions based on the feedback that you get. In other words, we learn from our outcomes, right? Okay, this client, it worked. Or this approach seems to be working for this diagnosis. Or this type of clients, this seems to be working. So we learn from our outcomes. So each of these elements has process or steps in our practice has elements of research. We do it unconsciously, many times unknowingly. It happens. It's not random conclusions that we arrive at. It's not random acts of interventions or therapy or any intervention, any field. Okay, so therefore, it's not that we are not doing research. It's not that we are not thinking like from a research point of view. The only thing is we just don't know that somewhere research is part of what we are already doing. It's just that we are not looking at it. I'm not seeing it because there is this huge shroud of contamination which says research means an academic research, which is drudgery and which is boring. And many times we don't even see it in any way connected to what we are doing. Because most of the research that we see is in terms of data, tables, variables, and numbers. And how can you put a number to somebody's, say, script decision or somebody's contamination? Therefore, we don't even see the idea of research is anywhere connected to what we are doing. Okay. So therefore, the question is, what is research in the context of, as I said earlier, research is a foundation for scientific thinking. So therefore, what makes practice scientific? Intentionality, which means I need to be doing it with full, conscious awareness. It's not just, oh, something I did, it worked. No, that is not a scientific approach. That is not a research-based approach. It needs to be consistent, which means, okay, an effective confrontation should lead to some sort of decontamination. Okay, so there has to be some consistency. There has to be transparency of assumptions, which is very much basic in TA where we say open communication. I tell the client, look, this is what the process we are going to do because I think probably this is what is happening with you. So there is a transparency of assumption. It's not just, the assumptions are unconscious and therefore I'm just doing by luck, I get certain outcome. No. Okay. And openness to revision. And that is what scientific temper is. What is scientific temper? Systematically approaching something with intentionality so that the outcome can be reproduced. Not only to explain a phenomenon, but also must be able to reproduce. There has to be some element of consistency in the outcome. If I do this, it will result in this. It may not result all the time in the same way. Like even if you measure gravity at different points on Earth, it's not going to get you the same number. But I know it will be somewhere around 9.84. Similarly, all my interventions in whichever field we are working on may not all the time result in the same outcome, but I will have a sense, okay, if the client is going through this, probably this series of interventions would lead to this outcome. I'm not doing it at random, but I'm doing it with full intentionality and fully conscious of what I'm doing and why I'm doing. And that's what they say. The difference between a layperson doing certain thing, he may be an expert, highly skilled, and a professional doing the same thing, like for example, medicine. There may be a country doctor who does, and he also curing patients. And there is maybe, the other so-called qualified doctor doing it. The difference why he call him a professional and the other not, because the professional not only knows what to do, he also knows why he is doing what he's doing. And he may be therefore able to explain, okay, why this is working. And that comes from the scientific temper, or in other words, a research mindset. Okay. Now I'm inviting you to take a minute and reflect on this. We are going to take a pause from the presentation. Just broadly, I gave you an idea of what the myths we carry and so on. Where in your current practice are you already being curious, systematic, and reflective? Okay, where in your current practice are you already being curious, systematic, and reflective? Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing for a moment and invite some reflections. Currently, in whatever field you are practicing in, where are you being curious, reflective, and also systematic? I see Shivani saying, when I'm treatment planning for psychotherapy, okay. Yeah, you can also unmute and speak immediately, no problem, or enter into your chat box.
I'm happy to share.
Yes, Shivani.
Yeah, I think I feel that if I start to do the reflection in the therapy space, it comes in the way. So that's for me not a space where I'm reflecting. It's really the moment to flow with the client and be in the moment. The reflection comes later when one might want to think of to take a bird's eye view and see. And I think over time I take away. um not rules, but some idea about, okay, I know that I want to stroke this client for ABC, or I need to wait and pause and not hurry with this client, or whatever the general uh, space
Yeah.
I want to be within comes up. So, yeah, I think it's mostly when I'm reflecting and planning the sessions.
It's a very important point. Not only planned interventions, but also ongoing relationships could throw some light when you are curiously reflecting on it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
That's very important element in professional development. Thank you for sharing that. I see some more comments there. Once the session is over, about what I might have sensed and missed, yeah, that's also very helpful. When I see changes in students using TA, yeah, I taught this, and then after 2 days, a student comes back and says, "Ma'am, I gave this stroke to my brother, and then he was so happy, and then we both did something which I've never done all these years." It's a huge validation to something, the effectiveness of stroke, isn't it? And we don't look at it that way. Wonderful. Piyush says, when I use a TA framework to analyze the client's thinking, feeling, behavior, especially when I do it in writing, yeah, you reflect and it's just not out there, but you reflect and you also note it down. And in TA, another beautiful tool that we have is diagrams. Draw it. I think someone said, I think it's Byrne somewhere said, if you're in doubt, draw. See if you could put it into a diagram, into a drama triangle or into a transactional diagram, or plot it into the whole script system framework. Can I get it into a diagram? That's another effective way of reflecting. It's systematic. And it doesn't come with a dogmatic sense of saying this is what it is. It comes with a sense of curiosity. Say, oh, is it possible that the psychological message came from the parent and not necessarily the child? So it's important questions which show us that we are thinking systematically. Some more responses. Studying the effect of trauma on each body cell. Okay. Yeah, that's something very typically we tend to do. When do I do a need analysis for a training program? Yeah, systematically approaching it. It's not just that, the manager said something and then I went ahead and just did a training. No. I talked to a few people. I even conduct a survey. I collect some data and then I decide, okay, you are saying there is some problem with the morale, but I think there is something to do with probably communication. Okay. And that is definitely a outcome of some research. Sundar?
Yeah. So I just want to share, I'm currently doing digital marketing, meaning, I'm a yoga instructor trying to get I'm doing it online. So I'm doing the meta ads. So the cost per click and, the amount I spend, for example, I spent 2,000 rupees and got 70 leads. So I'm analyzing that and, I'm thinking what is the kind of copy I should write. So this type of systematic research also is going into my
Absolutely.
day-to-day
There's
work.
so much going in social media nowadays, right?
Right.
People say what sort of post will get maximum number of
Clicks.
likes or maximum number of clicks or maximum amount of engagement. And how
Right.
does that transfer into, real time, maybe increase in sales or, increase in inquiry? Those are hard fact, research elements. Like Aarti said, when I invite a client to slow down and allow the emotions to emerge, yeah, there's a whole lot of reflection, curiosity goes into deciding when do I allow the client to, or invite the client to bring out their emotions, or when do I decide, oh, this is a racket, I'm not going to, you know, uh, reinforce it, and I'm going to basically maybe just name it and go past. These are all very important elements, and we do them intentionally. Tamil Selvan says, after conducting the training program, I get able to connect with, systematic, curious, and reflective aspects. Yeah, you think back and reflect and then say, okay, how did this training work? What made the trainees feel so good or give me such a high rating after a training program? Sudha says, a TA practitioner, now it became my day-to-day practice to reflect my communication with my daughters, in my professional practice, curiosity to bring a change and to look into new outcomes and growth. Yeah, absolutely. This is not only, this is what I wanted to also say a little later. This is not only in your practice with your clients, you can also be very curious and reflective and systematic in your engagement in all your relationships as well. Okay, when you're looking at it systematically, and then you are, really, most important thing is you are doing it intentionally and you are recording them. You are documenting them. I think that's a very important aspect. Okay. Great. Thank you for all that sharing. I'm going to continue sharing the screen. So a simple inquiry cycle, as you could see it, okay, will involve this. You have a question, you observe, then you reflect, you adjust your response in your mind, and then you re-observe. Okay. I'll give you a simple example. For example, a client, this is something all of, especially therapists, must be very familiar with, this whole gallows laughter. Okay. So naturally it starts with a question, right? Somebody said something and they laugh, or something happened, and then you say, okay, what do I do next? That is a question we often ask. And you observe that the client is laughing when they're sharing something painful. Then you reflect. Okay, is it a gallows, or is it an insightful laughter, or is it coming from the adult? And then you adjust your response. Sometimes you would have also laughed, maybe smiled. And then you realize, no, okay, this is not, healthy laughter that I should reinforce. So therefore, anyway, I smiled or I laughed along with the client, which could mean that reinforcing, the gallows. So I might adjust my response accordingly. I may, in fact, bring it to the open to the client and say, okay, just now realized as I was laughing that, it doesn't sound like congruent with what you are actually sharing. So what is actually going on there? And then you re-observe what is happening, both within you and with the client. Okay? We all do this in a fraction of a second many times, right? All this happens. And research begins when this is made conscious. When you're intentionally, consciously, knowing that this is what is happening, then research begins. Till then, it is, of course, practice. I've applied it. Later on, when you reflect either in supervision or by your own self, you look at, okay, what happened in that moment? So something shifted in that moment between both of us. And you reflect and get into the cycle. Start with a question, what happened? Observe, reflect, adjust, and then re-observe. This whole phenomenon, if you are able to look at it, then we are taking the whole experience into the realm of research. So, and this is not only in any particular field, it is applicable equally in all fields in TA. You can do this in counseling when you are sitting with your client, either individuals or in groups. We do it in educational settings, in organizations. Sometimes we do it very, very explicitly in organizations like training need analysis or in a diagnostic stage for an OD intervention. We do this all the more explicitly through surveys and through observations and so on, interviews and so on, and on psychotherapy as well. Okay, here is a client who comes with the depression diagnosis, and this is the process that I followed, and then it led to this sort of an outcome. Am I reflecting? And that is how practice through this approach of research leads to new knowledge emerging. Okay, practice generates insights. Like, what Eric Berne said. He looks into that client and then he said, oh, okay, there is a part of in us which is just copied from somebody outside. Like he's just acting like his father whenever he is going and gambling. Okay, but when he's feeling guilty, then he's becoming that same old little child, or he's feeling like a little kid. So practice generates insights, and documentation gives shape to it. Insight is just insight if it stays in your head. But if I'm able to document it systematically, saying, okay, this happened with this client, but it seems to be happening with similar clients coming with similar diagnosis. And that gives shape. Shape to what? Shape to probably some new theory or a new concept, but not necessarily all the time. Okay? And sharing builds collective wisdom. I get this insight, it gives shape to it in form of a concept or a hypothesis or a theory, and I share it with others, other colleagues, either through a workshop or I share it either through writing an article or publishing a book. Okay? So that publication is only an outcome of research. It's not the goal of research. So much of our experiences stays with us. But how often do we take the time and effort to really put it down and then share it with others? We don't do it because we think, this is very common. Or we tend to think, if I have to publish, it has to be in this strict, academic standard, or it has to follow all this, analytical models and tools and so on. So we don't do it. We don't value the power of our own practice and our own reflections. So therefore, many times we don't even document them. Right? And what gets in the way? This is what we said already many times. I have experiences, I do reflect, I do go for supervision, I document them, I even have a practice journal, but I don't consider it as research. And I don't consider it worthy of writing or sharing with others. Because we tend to think I am not academic. The belief is I am not an academic, and research is only for academics. Or fear of judgment, or what if people laugh at it? It sounds like so trivial, it's so simple, so basic. Or time constraints. We tend to think, I have to write this, I have to do that, something other than what I'm normally doing. It has to be something extraordinary or over and above. Okay? But we need to understand and reframe that research clarifies practice. I'm anyway practicing. Why don't I just look at it from a research perspective which is being curious and systematic, and also document it so that I get much better clarity about my practice. So that I don't think that clients are getting cured out of luck. Okay, today I got lucky. Or when something is not working, oh, this is not my day. No, there is a methodology behind why something is working and why something is not working. Am I willing to take the time to reflect on it and learn from that experience and share with others what my learning was? That is a research mindset. Okay. And it's also that research is an ethical practice because I'm able to notice my impact and I would question my effectiveness. Why am I effective with this sort of clients, whereas not, for example, why am I effective with, say, men and not necessarily with women? Why am I effective with grown-up adults and not so much with children? I'm using the same framework, same theory. So therefore, I can decide at some point, okay, I will not counsel children, or I will not, counsel couples, or I will not counsel or do therapy with people with, say, clinical depression. I could arrive at those ethical choices when I'm really clear to question my own effectiveness, rather than think, oh, I'm omnipotent and I can do all sort of issues and all sort of clients. And that leads to professional accountability. Having clarity about my own practice, what is very effective, what is not effective. And that comes from a research approach, not doing research. That is an important element. Approaching it from a research mindset is very different from doing research. Okay. So therefore, my invitation to all of you is notice questions alive in your work. Think of any question. Don't think it is silly or simple. Notice all questions which are alive in your work, questions that you are still sitting with, and treat practice as inquiry. Practice is not something that is a product, an end product. No, practice is inquiry into the phenomenon. In our case, phenomenon of human mind or human relationships. Therefore, there's something new to learn for us on a day-to-day basis. And let supervision be our research lab. Because you use either self-supervision or peer supervision or supervision from a supervisor. Let it be a research lab in the sense, explore all these questions, get more clarity, observe it much more systematically. Okay? And the final reflection pause. Again, take a minute and think of what is one recurring question in your work that deserves deeper and more systematic attention. One recurring question in your work that deserves deeper and more systematic attention. Okay, I'm going to again stop sharing for a moment and invite you to think about it. Maybe enter it in your chat, or we can just unmute and speak. What is one thing that keeps coming, question keep on coming again and again, which you think now you could think, oh, maybe if I approach it systematically, I might find some answer to it. Could you think of something like that?
Yes, I'm
Yes,
Tessin here.
Yes.
Something that I've been noticing and observing currently for some time is with couple counseling or marital counseling, the impact of culture and the exclusion of certain ego states in particular gender. So I've been, yes. So,
Beautiful. So the
yeah.
question is, that's a very rich topic of, for research where you don't have to do research in the traditional sense of research, but curiously recording and noting, and then I think, okay, what is happening in couples? For example, why are these, I'm just generalizing a stereotype, why are these men so emotionally distant? Or why are these women, always emotionally dependent? I'm just asking, probably from your practice, if you see a lot of couples, you will get this question, right? And that's a
Yes.
good point to explore, be curious and then explore further. you might end up saying, oh, probably this is the script belief, or probably this is the injunction that men tend to have, or that is probably the predominant injunction with women. You could come up with some hypothesis like that, which is very valuable, isn't it? Lovely. Thank you. Yeah. Any other question?
Maybe, Surya, I used to reflect, whenever I do some systemic work in the organization. So how the emotions can be used to improve the performance? So there normally they don't attend to the emotions.
Yeah.
I find when they use emotions, there's a lot of motivation, passion. So I used to reflect on that.
Yeah, that's again a very interesting topic to explore. How do I study? Okay, this group is highly emotional, whereas that group which is not at all emotional. So how does it differ in terms of their effectiveness, in terms of their transactions, that dynamics in these groups? It could throw a lot of light. Yes, thanks, Raghu. Any other thoughts? Any other questions? Jasmine?
Very often I see students and I see their parents. You know, parents are struggling for these children to have a better living. So they are doing something different, like working for long hours. But children are not understanding that, and they are thinking that, why are parents not spending time with me? So that, I mean, for both of them to understand this, of course, there's lack of communication as to why, what each one is doing. So that's always, I'm very curious, because it's like, it's a good reason parents are doing what they're doing. Yeah. And, but the children are totally, in the opposite spectrum, stating that parents are not spending time with me.
Yeah, and there's so many areas you can look at it, no? From when you get curious to approach the same thing, you can look at it like, oh, what happens, the impact of impact of lack of communication on parent-child relationships. What all the various, misconceptions that children could have. That itself could be a very, interesting subject to explore. Yeah. There's another question. How do I be inclusive? Okay, that's a question. We'll take it up a little later. Counseling children for 20 years, the change of the kind of issues being brought forward and the many reasons. Yeah, that's an important thing, Sangeeta. How the nature of issues itself has emerged over time. This is a longitudinal question. Absolutely. Sudha, you raised your hand?
Yes.
Yes, Sudha.
A very question I've been asking is, what is success?
Yeah. That's true. That's one of my favorite topics, which I discuss both in organizational and also educational settings. How do you define success, and how the definition of success would probably vary with age group, with gender, maybe over time. Arpita?
Yeah, so Surya, the question that I am sitting with, and especially I see that in most important relationships, people are struggling to be seen and to belong.
Yeah.
And that's look like such a, while it may feel very personal experience, but looks like a very general, it's there for many people.
Yes, absolutely. That itself is a very important, huge area to study, in fact. And therefore, we could look into what sort of behaviors or what sort of actions could fulfill or satisfy, those needs. And here we have interesting models like strokes or in time structuring. So what could people do together in terms of time structuring that could probably give the sense of belonging or develop the sense of, yeah, absolutely. Very interesting. And that is the research. What you're talking about is a very fertile topic. You don't have to do any additional work. Work with some of the clients. Bring in your reflections. How you looked at, say, about 10 clients or something like that. What worked for you and the clients? That is, something quite richer to worthy of sharing with others, with the community. Beautiful. Sundar?
What I want to share now is I'm trying to evolve and then change and grow, So this, my interest in TA is just to, make me become aware of how I am evolving. But what is going on is all my near and dear, close, everybody, whomever I am dealing with, more or less, they are in the same path. So you see, one thing, Surya, I just want to share that we can't go on teaching them, you have to change or anything. And the only person who will change is myself. So this has been my, preoccupation. I've been thinking, how do I, talk to this person, and then I cannot hurt them directly. No, I cannot say you are just stuck to, this has been my
Yeah,
main.
it's another interesting topic, isn't it? When one person grows in a relationship, how does it affect the relationship? And therefore, what sort of help, support, or reinforcement that would be needed to
Yeah.
make things better? Lovely. Thank you. Ekta?
Thank you.
I have two things to share. One is what I'm noticing in therapy, a lot of people are coming with a need to fix me. There's a huge need to fix me that comes out. And it just makes me wonder, what is the ecosystem about? That, that everyone in therapy wants to want to be fixed. There's something I need to work on myself. So that's one thing I'm staying with. And the other is the whole sense of purpose that I have in life. The emptiness and the purpose, that's, again, I'm finding it's not only you look at a certain population, I'm seeing it happening right starting at the age of 21. Like,
yes,
what's my purpose in life?
Yeah.
So the whole emptiness and the purposeness. So these two things is what I'm seeing a lot emerging that makes me question the whole ecosystem.
So can you turn them into focus of your research in your practice? See, that is the whole idea. Because you are seeing clients anyway, and you're seeing clients, almost every other client coming with this sort of an issue. And you have rich experience already. And if you have noted these client cases, then you have enough data already. So can you find out what does this data depict? For example, it could help you find out what is causing this lack of purpose or meaning in life nowadays, in this generation. And what are the options that people have so that it will bring purpose? And that becomes a very strong, powerful message to share with others and the community, fellow community, professionals, so that everybody don't have to reinvent the wheel. So the whole idea of, sharing, publishing, whatever you call it from a research point of view, is such that people can build on already existing knowledge and not necessarily having to reinvent the wheel every time. Right? Yeah, very important, beautiful questions. So thank you all for sharing all this. And I think it's a very, very valid, important questions that we could take back with us and bring into it. So finally, I would like to close and then, of course, throw open for some more sharing and questions. Is this point. Good practice is already research-minded. Please, that is what I want to convey. When you are practicing on a regular basis, there is research already part of it. I only need to develop the lens to look at it. Okay, and our task is to make it conscious and systematic. Okay, that is the intent of me choosing to present this talk on this topic today. And now I invite you to further any questions or sharing that you have. Yeah. What are you sitting with right now?
Good evening, sir. This is Gayatri here.
Yes, Gayatri.
So basically, the question that I had in the chat box was, I keep thinking about, as a health and fitness coach and a graphotherapist, I try to include both the physical and the mental aspects when I deal with clients. So the question that keeps pondering in myself is, how do I include like both with the available modalities that I have, that I've been practicing with the TA and the other, like which one to use where? Is the basic question that I keep getting, but I do find answers, sir. But sometimes, like, I'm a little doubtful, like, if I'm right, am I using the right approach? And that is the question that I keep pondering with.
Of course, there's no easy answer to this. The question that pops up in my mind is, or maybe not a question, probably a reaction response I have in my mind is, the beauty of this your situation is probably nobody else has the same problem because they may not be using the same modalities the way you are using with the same type of audience or to address the same issue. So therefore, if you could, trust the integrity of your own process and start reflecting on your work, saying, okay, if I use graphotherapy along with TA, it is producing this outcome. If I'm using, say, graphotherapy with, say, Gestalt or NLP, it's producing this outcome. So can you reflect on that and then, come up with your own conclusions?
Yes,
So
sir.
what I'm hearing coming as a hurdle to this is, how do I know I'm right or not? And that is where supervision comes into play. I'm assuming you are already in TA training.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So therefore, I think this is where supervision comes, very helpful. Take it for supervision. Then
Okay.
your reflection deepens and you will come with much more conviction.
Okay, sir.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
You're welcome. Yeah. Any more questions or any comments? Anything that came up for you?
So it's not a question. It's my experience of this 1 hour session. So it is, I feel like I received a validation that you are a researcher. For a research, you need not wait for a time or you have to enroll. So start from today, whatever you are doing, it's a research. So it's a great validation, I feel.
Absolutely. I'm so happy if that's what it could do. So that's what we need to do. I need not have to be the researcher, that's the important point. The notion of researcher that I have in my mind. But I think all of us are, having research in our practice. We have to only see it and make it explicit. So reflect on it, note it down, write it, and share it. If it is not too big in your mind, then you write a small piece for, say, the SAATA newsletter, or you write it in your blog, or write it if you think it is something substantial, write it for the SAATA journal. So you don't have to wait for one of those typical research project in order to write. Share it and disseminate your experiences. That's the beauty of being part of a community like ours, which is an ongoing, continuously learning community. Thank you.
Yeah. Treat practice as an inquiry. That was very insightful, Surya. Yeah, because every day we practice, and we are also very curious, and that can lead to some kind of research because we have so many questions coming from there.
Because we tend to think practice is the result of all our learning. No, practice is actually the beginning of some new learning. Because I would practice only based on what I have learned already. But my practice will teach me things which probably I have not learned. And that is what research is. Simple questions that help me always to look at it that way. Okay, what about this is working for me? And what about this is not working for me? That could give me new insight. And I could share it with others.
Thank you. Thank you, Surya.
Thank you. Okay, I'm aware of time. Sudha, over to you.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Surya. And are there any more questions? Maybe there's room for one question. Otherwise, I'll hand it over to Raghu to give the vote of thanks.
We can also take a group picture. So that's fine. I'll take the picture if
Please,
a few
Nishta.
more people
Okay,
switch.
Yeah,
that'd be nice. Yeah.
please take it.
Yeah.
Those who are
So everyone,
comfortable,
please,
if you can switch on your videos for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
There are two two windows, so give me a second to do this. Yeah, just keep smiling for as long as you can.
Nishta, you can get all 30 in
tell
one
us.
window.
I can?
Yeah,
Yes,
you
you
can
can.
get. I am having it in one window, actually.
Okay, let me
30
quickly try.
plus. You just increase the number of, it's somewhere in the settings.
The
All
gallery
smiling,
view.
smiling.
Keep smiling.
Nishta, you need more
Okay.
light.
One, Nishta?
I got it. I got it. Done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so no more questions? Okay, so Sudha, shall I go for
Yes.
proposing?
Yeah.
Surya, so lovely start, okay, for us on research, Surya. So much of insights, direction, and how to develop our professional mindset on research. And okay, so many things, okay, whatever we have been doing is, okay, so someone said I missed, Sudha, okay, said, okay, so already we have been practicing. Now it gives us, okay, a lot of conviction, validation to work further and to write paper on, okay, research too. And very nice, okay, to understand that TA was born out of observation and research. And you go a very simple way of doing research, a simple inquiry cycle. And so using the mobile idea, already to buy mobile, we do a lot of research. Yeah, recently got a mobile. Yeah, so nice. Very, very okay, simple to even layman can understand. And so much of, okay, so depth in it. And I hope, okay, this would give us, okay, enough of understanding to get into research, okay, mindset and to work further. So on behalf of SAATA and SAATA research team, a heartfelt thanks to you, Surya, for the wonderful session. Great beginning for
Thank you,
us.
Raghu. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
And thank you so much for okay, each of you participants, okay, so involved, and hope okay, we would be meeting you again okay, in the next okay, webinars. And our okay, so thanks to sort of BOT and executive committee for their continuous support to do this okay, so work. And thanks to you, okay, Sudha and Anchal. Anchal is not here, our research team. And our okay, final okay, so thanks to Nisha, okay, so our staff who okay did all the communications, organization and all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, then so this
Thank
will
you all. Bye-bye.
yeah.
Bye.
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 Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.